There is nothing more empowering than realizing that the power to shape your life lies within you, not in the chaos of the world around you. These words from one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers remind us that control begins with self-mastery. In a world that often feels unpredictable and overwhelming, Stoicism offers a timeless refuge, a set of tools to help us navigate life's storms with clarity and resilience. Today, we're diving into 40 Stoic insights that can help you take back control of your life, one principle at a time. These aren't just ancient ideas. They're practical, actionable strategies designed to help you thrive in the face of modern challenges. Whether you're grappling with stress, uncertainty, or the pressures of daily life, these insights will guide you toward a stronger, more centered version of yourself. So let's begin this journey together, exploring how Stoic wisdom can transform the way you respond to the world, starting with the most important shift of all, mastering what's within your control and letting go of what isn't. The first step to control is knowing what you can't control. This might sound counterintuitive, but it's at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The ancient Stoic teacher Epictetus once said, "Some things are within our power while others are not." He called this the dichotomy of control, a simple yet profound idea that divides life into two categories: what we can influence and what we cannot. Our thoughts, actions, and reactions fall under our control. The weather, other people's opinions, or even the traffic on your way to work, these are all outside your power. Think about it like this. Imagine you're stuck in a long meeting at work and you're feeling frustrated because the discussion seems pointless. You can't control the agenda or how others behave, but you can control how you respond. Do you let irritation take over, or do you focus on staying calm and finding value in the moment? This is where Stoicism shines. It's not about ignoring challenges, but about redirecting your energy toward what truly matters, your own mindset. Now let's bring this into a modern context. Picture a stressful day at the office. Deadlines are looming, emails are piling up, and your keeps interrupting you with questions. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, isn't it? But here's the Stoic approach. Instead of trying to control the chaos around you, focus on how you handle it. Can you prioritize your tasks more effectively? Can you set boundaries with these are the things within your power. The rest, whether the printer breaks or the Wi-Fi goes down, isn't worth your mental energy. So here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life are you spending energy trying to control the uncontrollable? Maybe it's worrying about things that haven't happened yet or trying to change someone else's behavior. The Stoic insight here is clear. By letting go of what you can't control, you free up space to focus on what you can. And that's where real control begins. How well do you truly know yourself? It's a simple question, but one that can stop you in your tracks if you really sit with it. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, the very foundation upon which everything else is built. Without it, you're like a ship drifting without a compass, reacting to life's storms rather than navigating them with purpose. The Stoics believed that understanding yourself, your emotions, and your reactions was the first step toward living a life of virtue and inner peace. One of the most famous Stoic philosophers spent years reflecting on his own nature in his personal writings, now known as meditations. He didn't just jot down lofty ideas. He held himself accountable, questioning his own motives, emotions, and habits. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This wasn't just advice for others. It was a reminder to himself, a daily practice of looking inward to understand why he felt what he felt and acted the way he did. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine someone who constantly feels anger rising in traffic. They might blame the other drivers, the weather, or even their own bad luck. But a Stoic would ask, what's really going on here? Is the traffic the problem, or is it my reaction to it? By recognizing their emotional triggers, perhaps impatience or a need for control, they can begin to untangle the root cause of their frustration. This is self-awareness in action, seeing the patterns in your thoughts and behaviors, and then choosing how to respond rather than simply reacting. So how can you start building this kind of self-awareness? One powerful tool is journaling, just as did. Take a few minutes each day to reflect on your thoughts, emotions, and actions. What made you feel joy today? What triggered stress or anger? Over time, you'll begin to notice patterns, habits of mind that either serve you or hold you back. Journaling isn't about judgment, it's about observation. It's about stepping back and seeing yourself clearly so you can make intentional choices moving forward. Self-awareness isn't just about understanding your emotions. It's about understanding your values, your goals, and the kind of person you want to become. It's the first step toward taking control of your life, one thought, one action, one moment at a time. So take a moment to ask yourself, how well do I truly know myself? And what might I discover if I looked a little closer? Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, began each day with a simple yet profound practice: morning reflection. Before the world could demand his attention, he took time to sit with his thoughts, preparing himself mentally and emotionally for whatever the day might bring. He once wrote, "Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life." This wasn't just poetic advice. It was a deliberate strategy to take control of his mind and actions from the very first moment he woke up. For Seneca, the morning was sacred, a quiet space to align his intentions and remind himself of what truly mattered. Imagine starting your day not with the rush of notifications or the weight of unfinished tasks, but with a few moments of clarity and purpose. That's the power of morning reflection. It's not about adding another item to your to-do list. It's about creating a foundation of calm and focus that carries you through the chaos. Think of it as setting the tone for your entire day. When you begin with intention, you're less likely to be swept away by distractions or reactive impulses. Instead, you step into the driver's seat, ready to navigate whatever comes your way. A modern adaptation of this Stoic practice could be as simple as a 5-minute morning meditation. It doesn't require any special tools or training, just a quiet space and a willingness to pause. During this time, you might reflect on your values, set a small intention for the day, or even visualize how you'd like to respond to challenges. The key is to use this moment to ground yourself, much like Seneca did centuries ago. As he said, "The wise man looks ahead, the fool attempts to look all around and thus sees nothing." By focusing your mind in the morning, you're not just reacting to life, you're shaping it. Take a moment to consider how you currently start your day. Does it feel rushed, scattered, or reactive? Or do you already have a routine that helps you feel centered and in control? If your mornings could use a little more intention, what small change might you make to bring more focus and calm into those first moments? The beauty of this practice is that it's entirely yours to design. Whether it's a few deep breaths, a moment of gratitude, or a brief meditation, the goal is to start your day with clarity so you can face whatever comes your way with a sense of control and purpose. What if everything happening to you is exactly what you need? This is the essence of a Latin phrase meaning love of fate. It's not just about accepting what happens to you, it's about embracing it, finding meaning in it, and even celebrating it. The Stoics believed that every event, no matter how difficult, is an opportunity for growth. By loving your fate, you transform obstacles into stepping stones and setbacks into setups for something greater. The philosopher Nietzsche, who admired Stoicism, took this idea even further. He saw as a way to live fully and authentically, not just enduring life but thriving in it. For Nietzsche, Loving your fate meant saying yes to every moment, even the painful ones, because they shape who you are. This isn't about blind optimism or pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that every experience, good or bad, contributes to your journey. Take the story of a young entrepreneur whose startup failed. Instead of seeing it as a defeat, she viewed it as a chance to learn. She analyzed what went wrong, gained valuable insights, and used that knowledge to build a new business that eventually thrived. What seemed like a failure at first became the foundation for her success. That's in action, turning adversity into advantage. Now think about your own life. What's a challenge you've faced recently? Maybe it's a missed opportunity, a difficult conversation, or a personal setback. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, ask yourself, how can this help me grow? What can I learn from it? By reframing the situation, you're not just accepting your fate, you're embracing it. And in that embrace, you'll find a deeper sense of resilience and purpose. This mindset doesn't mean you'll never feel frustration or disappointment, but it does mean you'll face those emotions with clarity and courage, knowing they're part of a larger story. So the next time life throws something unexpected your way, remember, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And that shift in perspective can change everything. What if you woke up tomorrow and everything you valued, your job, your relationships, even your health, was gone? It's a jarring thought, isn't it? But this is exactly the kind of mental exercise the Stoics called negative visualization. It might sound counterintuitive, but intentionally imagining the loss of what you hold dear can actually strengthen your gratitude and resilience. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, often wrote about this practice. He believed that by preparing for adversity in our minds, we're less likely to be by it in reality. Instead of being crushed by loss, we can face it with clarity and calm. Take a moment to think about this in your own life. Let's say you have a close relationship with someone you care about deeply, a partner, a friend, or a family member. Now, imagine what it would feel like if that person were no longer in your life. It's uncomfortable to think about, but doing so can help you appreciate their presence even more. You might find yourself expressing gratitude more freely, cherishing small moments, or simply being more present when you're together. That's the power of negative visualization. It shifts your perspective, helping you see what you already have rather than what you lack. Here's a challenge for you. Pick one aspect of your life that you often take for granted. It could be your health, your home, or even something as simple as a daily routine. Spend a few minutes imagining what it would be like to lose it. How would it change your day? How would it affect your emotions? By practicing this exercise, you're not dwelling on pessimism. You're training your mind to value what's already here. And when you do that, you build a deeper sense of gratitude and a stronger foundation for handling life's inevitable challenges. Your effort matters more than the result. This simple yet profound Stoic principle reminds us that while we can control our actions, we often cannot control the outcomes they produce. Think about it. When you pour your energy into preparing for a presentation, studying for an exam, or even training for a competition, the only thing truly within your power is how much effort you put in. The rest, how others perceive your work, the final grade, or whether you win, is ultimately out of your hands. And yet, how often do we tie our sense of worth or happiness to these external results? Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, put it beautifully when he said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." In other words, do your best, but don't let the outcome define you. This mindset isn't about giving up or being indifferent. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of expectations. When you focus on the effort, on showing up, doing the work, and staying true to your values, you remove the anxiety that comes from obsessing over things you can't control. Let's take an example. Imagine you've spent weeks preparing for a presentation at work. You've researched, practiced, and refined your delivery. But instead of fixating on how your colleagues might react or whether your boss will approve, you focus on the act itself, on delivering your message clearly and authentically. By detaching from the outcome, you not only reduce the pressure you feel but also perform better, because your mind isn't clouded by fear of failure or craving for approval. So where in your life are you holding onto results too tightly? Maybe it's a project at work, a relationship, or even a personal goal. Take a moment to reflect. Are you letting the fear of failure or the desire for a specific outcome overshadow the joy of the process? The Stoics teach us that true peace comes from embracing the effort, not the end result. When you shift your focus to what you can control, you'll find that life becomes lighter, more fulfilling, and far less stressful. This isn't about abandoning ambition or lowering your standards. It's about recognizing that while outcomes are uncertain, your ability to act with integrity, discipline, and purpose is always within your grasp. And that in itself is a victory worth celebrating. Are you living in harmony with your true self? This question lies at the heart of one of Stoicism's most profound ideas, living in accordance with nature. But what does that really mean? For the Stoics, nature isn't just the physical world around us. It's about understanding and embracing the essence of who we are. It's about aligning our actions with reason, virtue, and the natural order of things. One of history's greatest Stoic thinkers often reflected on this idea, reminding us that everything in the universe is interconnected. We're not isolated beings. We're part of a larger whole, and living in harmony with nature means recognizing that connection. Think about it this way. When we act against our values or ignore what truly matters, we create inner conflict. It's like swimming against the current, exhausting and ultimately unfulfilling. But when we align our lives with reason and virtue, we flow with the natural rhythm of existence. For instance, imagine someone who decides to simplify their life, cutting out the noise of materialism and focusing on what truly brings them peace. They're not just decluttering their home, they're decluttering their mind, making space for what aligns with their deepest values. That's living in accordance with nature. So how can you apply this to your own life? Start by asking yourself, what does authenticity look like for you? Are there areas where you feel out of sync with your true self? Maybe it's a job that drains you, a relationship that no longer serves you, or even habits that pull you away from your core values. Living in accordance with nature isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about making choices that bring you closer to who you are at your best, rather than who the world expects you to be. As you reflect on this, consider what small changes you can make today to live more authentically, more intentionally, and more in tune with the natural flow of life. The Stoics understood the power of reflection, and few captured its essence better than Seneca, one of the great minds of ancient Rome. Every evening, Seneca would sit in quiet solitude, reviewing the events of his day. He believed this practice was essential for growth, a way to hold a mirror up to his actions, decisions, and thoughts. In his letters, he wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and retrace what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." This wasn't just a ritual. It was a way to ensure that each day, no matter how small or ordinary, became a stepping stone toward wisdom. So what can we learn from this ancient practice? At its core, evening reflection is about self-awareness. It's a moment to pause and ask yourself, did I live in alignment with my values today? Did I react with patience, or did I let frustration take the wheel? By revisiting the day's events, you create space to recognize patterns, celebrate progress, and identify areas for improvement. It's not about judgment or harsh criticism. It's about honest observation. Here's a modern twist. Pair your reflection with gratitude. Before you close your eyes, take a moment to note one thing you're grateful for from the day. It could be as simple as a kind word from a colleague or the warmth of the sun on your face. Gratitude shifts your focus from what went wrong to what went right, grounding you in positivity and resilience. Seneca once said, "Each day, acquire something that will fortify you against poverty, against death, indeed against other misfortunes as well." Every day, no matter how challenging or uneventful, offers a lesson. Maybe it's a reminder to slow down, to listen more, or to let go of what you can't control. Tonight, as you reflect, ask yourself, what's one thing today taught me? It doesn't have to be profound. Sometimes the smallest insights are the most meaningful. This practice isn't just about looking back. It's about moving forward with intention. By ending your day with reflection, you plant the seeds for a more mindful tomorrow. So, what will you take from today? The past is gone, the future is uncertain, all you have is now. This bold truth lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy and serves as a powerful reminder of where our focus should truly be. Think about it. How often do we waste energy dwelling on what's already happened or worrying about what might come next? The Stoics understood that this habit only robs us of the one thing we can truly influence, the present moment. One of the most famous Stoic thinkers often reflected on the fleeting nature of time. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." His words are a wake-up call, urging us to stop postponing life for some imagined future or replaying past mistakes. The present is all we truly possess, and it's where our power lies. When we anchor ourselves in the here and now, we reduce anxiety and regain a sense of control. Worry thrives in the unknown, whether it's the past we can't change or the future we can't predict. But the present, that's where we can act, decide, and live fully. Consider the story of someone overwhelmed by anxiety, constantly replaying past failures and fearing future challenges. They decide to adopt a Stoic practice of mindfulness, focusing solely on the present moment. Instead of letting their mind spiral into what-ifs or if-onlys, they start by grounding themselves in simple, immediate tasks, breathing deeply, feeling the ground beneath their feet, or noticing the sounds around them. Over time, this practice helps them break free from the grip of worry. By staying present, they discover that the weight of their anxiety begins to lift, revealing a newfound sense of clarity and calm. This is something you can try too. Start small. Set aside just 5 minutes each day to practice mindfulness. Sit quietly, focus on your breath, and bring your attention back to the present whenever it wanders. It's not about emptying your mind or achieving perfection. It's about training yourself to return to the now over and over again. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to live in the moment, free from the chains of regret and fear. The Stoics knew that presence is not just a habit, it's a skill. And like any skill, it grows stronger with practice. So why not start today? The present moment is waiting for you, ready to be lived fully. How would you live if today were your last day? It's a question that stops us in our tracks, forcing us to confront what we often avoid, the inevitability of our own mortality. The Stoics called this practice memento, or remembering death. Far from being morbid, this concept is a powerful tool for clarity and focus. By keeping the reality of death in mind, we strip away the distractions and trivialities that often consume our days. Instead, we're left with what truly matters. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most influential thinkers, wrote extensively about the brevity of life. He reminded us that time is the one resource we can never replenish. "You act like mortals in all that you fear," he wrote, "and like immortals in all that you desire." In other words, we often waste our days chasing things that won't last, forgetting that our time here is limited. But when we embrace the idea of memento, we start to live with intention. We ask ourselves, if I only had one day left, would I spend it arguing over minor grievances, scrolling endlessly, or worrying about things I can't control? Or would I focus on what brings meaning, connection, and joy? Consider the story of someone who survives a near-death experience, a car accident, a life-threatening illness, or even a close call in everyday life. Many people who've been through something like this describe it as a wake-up call. They quit jobs that drain them, repair broken relationships, or finally pursue a dream they've put off for years. Why? Because facing mortality forces us to see life through a clearer lens. The things we thought were important, status, wealth, approval, suddenly pale in comparison to the things that truly are: love, purpose, and the time we share with others. So what would you do differently if today were your last? What priorities would shift? What conversations would you have, or what risks would you take? Memento isn't about dwelling on the end, it's about living fully in the present. It's a reminder that our days are numbered, and that's precisely what makes them precious. When we remember this, we stop postponing the life we want and start living it, right here, right now. Your emotions are not your master. This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that emotions, while powerful, are not uncontrollable forces that dictate your actions. Instead, they are judgments, responses to the world around us that we can examine, question, and ultimately reshape. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, external events don't disturb us. It's our interpretation of those events that shapes our emotional response. Let's take anger as an example. Imagine you're in a heated argument with someone. Your heart races, your voice rises, and you feel the urge to lash out. In that moment, anger feels like an uncontrollable wave crashing over you. But here's the Stoic perspective. Anger isn't just an automatic reaction. It's a judgment, a belief that something unfair or unjust has happened. By pausing to examine that judgment, you can ask yourself, is this truly worth my energy? Am I interpreting this situation accurately? Often, you'll find that the source of your anger isn't the event itself, but the meaning you've assigned to it. This practice of examining emotions through reason is a skill anyone can develop. Think about an emotion you struggle with, whether it's anxiety, frustration, or even envy. What's the root cause? Is it tied to a specific situation, or is it a pattern of thinking that keeps resurfacing? By breaking it down, you can begin to see your emotions not as forces beyond your control, but as opportunities for self-reflection and growth. The Stoics didn't suggest suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. Instead, they encouraged us to engage with them thoughtfully, using reason as a guide. This approach doesn't just help us manage our reactions, it empowers us to take back control of our inner world, one judgment at a time. What if everything you love is temporary? It's a thought that might feel unsettling at first, but the Stoics believed that confronting this truth head-on is one of the most powerful ways to reduce suffering. Life, by its very nature, is constantly in flux. Relationships, careers, possessions, none of these are permanent. And while that might sound bleak, Stoicism teaches us that accepting this impermanence can actually be liberating. One of the most famous Stoic philosophers often reflected on the transient nature of life in his writings. He reminded himself that everything we experience, joy, loss, success, failure, is fleeting. You could leave life right now, he wrote. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This isn't meant to be morbid. It's a call to focus on what truly matters and to let go of what we can't control. When we stop clinging to the idea that things should stay the same, we free ourselves from the anxiety of trying to hold onto what's inevitably slipping away. Take, for example, someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it might feel like the end of the world, a source of fear, anger, or even shame. But when they begin to see this change as part of life's natural ebb and flow, they can start to adapt. They might explore new opportunities, learn new skills, or even discover a path they never would have considered otherwise. By embracing the impermanence of their old role, they find peace in the uncertainty of what's next. How do you handle change in your own life? Do you resist it, clinging to what's familiar, or do you see it as an opportunity to grow? The Stoics would argue that change isn't something to fear, it's simply a part of the human experience. When we stop fighting against it, we open ourselves up to resilience, creativity, and even gratitude for the moments we do have. After all, it's the temporary nature of things that makes them so precious. Virtue is the only true wealth. In a world that often measures worth by material possessions, social status, or fleeting achievements, the Stoics offer a radical perspective. True wealth lies not in what you have, but in who you are. For Stoics like Epictetus, virtue, defined as wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, stands as the highest good. It's the foundation of a meaningful life, something no external force can take away. Think about it. You could lose your job, your money, or even your reputation, but if you've cultivated a strong character, you remain unshaken. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This isn't about rejecting success or ambition. It's about redefining what success truly means. Stoicism teaches that external achievements are secondary to the integrity and moral strength you bring to every situation. Consider this example. Imagine someone offered you a lucrative deal, but it required you to compromise your honesty. The Stoic path would be clear. Choose virtue, even if it means walking away from personal gain. Why? Because while wealth and power can be lost, your character is yours to keep. It's the one thing no one can take from you. Now take a moment to reflect. How do you define success? Is it tied to external markers like money, fame, or recognition? Or does it align with the Stoic ideal of virtue, living with integrity, treating others fairly, and striving to be the best version of yourself? The Stoics challenge us to shift our focus inward, to prioritize the development of our character above all else. After all, when everything else fades, your virtue remains. Imagine holding in your hands the private thoughts of one of history's greatest leaders, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. His personal writings, later published as meditations, weren't meant for public consumption. They were his way of reflecting, processing, and reminding himself of the principles he wanted to live by. This act of journaling wasn't just a habit, it was a tool for self-mastery. And it's a practice that's as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Writing has a unique power to clarify your thoughts. When you put pen to paper, you're forced to slow down to organize the chaos in your mind. Stoic journaling takes this a step further by intentionally focusing on principles like gratitude, virtue, and the impermanence of life. It's not just about recording events, it's about reflecting on them through the lens of Stoicism. What did you do well today? What could you improve? How did you respond to challenges? These are the kinds of questions that turn journaling into a practice of self-improvement. Seneca, another Stoic giant, once wrote, "The life is not worth living. Reflection is the cornerstone of growth." It's how we learn from our mistakes, celebrate our progress, and stay aligned with our values. A modern Stoic journal doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as answering 3 questions each night. What did I learn today? How did I practice virtue? What can I do better tomorrow? This small habit can create a ripple effect, helping you live with more intention and less distraction. If you've never tried journaling before, think of it as a conversation with yourself. It's a space to be honest, to confront your fears, and to celebrate your wins. And the best part, it's entirely yours. You don't need to share it with anyone. The act of writing itself is the reward, so why not start tonight? Grab a notebook, find a quiet moment, and begin. You might be surprised at how much clarity and peace it brings. After all, didn't write to change the world, he wrote to change himself. And that's a goal we can all strive for. What if your struggles are your greatest teachers? Think about it. Those moments when life feels heavy, when obstacles seem insurmountable, could they actually be shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient? This is a core idea in Stoicism. Adversity isn't something to avoid or resent. It's an opportunity to grow. The Stoics believed that challenges are the forge where character is tempered and resilience is built. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, put it this way: difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. In other words, just as physical exercise builds muscle, facing hardship strengthens your ability to endure and adapt. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who famously failed over 1,000 times before successfully inventing the. When asked about his repeated failures, he responded, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Edison didn't see setbacks as defeats, he saw them as lessons. Each failure taught him something new, and that relentless pursuit of progress is what ultimately led to his success. His story is a powerful reminder that resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about learning how to rise stronger every time you fall. Now take a moment to reflect on your own life. Think about a time when you faced a significant challenge. Maybe it was a personal loss, a professional setback, or a moment when everything seemed to go wrong. What did that experience teach you? Did it reveal hidden strengths you didn't know you had? Did it change the way you approach problems or setbacks? Often, it's in these moments of struggle that we discover our true capacity for resilience, and that realization can transform how we face future challenges. The Stoic approach to adversity isn't about pretending everything is fine or ignoring the pain. It's about shifting your perspective, seeing obstacles not as roadblocks but as stepping stones. When you embrace this mindset, you stop fearing hardship and start recognizing it as a teacher. And that shift, more than anything else, is what builds unshakable resilience. Discomfort is a tool for growth. At first glance, this might sound counterintuitive. Why would anyone willingly choose to face hardship or discomfort? But in Stoicism, this is exactly what's encouraged. The idea is simple. By intentionally putting ourselves in situations that challenge our comfort zones, we build resilience, mental toughness, and a deeper appreciation for what we already have. As Epictetus once said, difficulties are things that show what men are. In other words, adversity reveals our true character, and by practicing voluntary discomfort, we prepare ourselves to handle life's inevitable challenges with grace. Take fasting, for example. It's not just about abstaining from food. It's about mastering self-control and remembering that even our most basic needs are within our power to regulate. Or consider cold showers, an act that, while uncomfortable, teaches us to endure discomfort without complaint and to find strength in simplicity. These small, deliberate acts of discomfort train us to face larger hardships with a calm and steady mind. They remind us that we are capable of enduring far more than we think. So, what's one small act of voluntary discomfort you could try today? Maybe it's waking up earlier than usual, taking a break from social media, or spending a day without unnecessary luxuries. The goal isn't to punish yourself, but to prove to yourself that you can thrive even when conditions aren't ideal. By doing this, you're not just building resilience, you're reclaiming control over your reactions and your life. And isn't that what Stoicism is all about? Are you more attached to trying or succeeding? It's a question that cuts to the heart of what it means to live a Stoic life. The Stoics believed that our true power lies not in the outcomes we achieve, but in the effort we put forth. Why? Because outcomes are often beyond our control. No matter how hard we work, how much we prepare, or how perfectly we execute, the world can still throw us a curveball. But effort, that's ours to own. It's the one thing no one can take away from us. One of the great Stoic philosophers put it simply, do the best you can with what you've got and let the rest go. For him, the act of doing your duty, of showing up, of giving your all, was the ultimate measure of a person. It wasn't about winning or losing, but about the integrity of your effort. He understood that life is unpredictable, but effort is where we find our dignity. Take, for example, an athlete training for the Olympics. They might dream of standing on the podium, but the real reward isn't the medal. It's the hours of sweat, discipline, and perseverance that got them there. Even if they don't win, the effort itself becomes a source of pride and fulfillment. It's a reminder that the process, not the prize, is where growth happens. So where in your life are you fixated on the outcome instead of the effort? Maybe it's at work, where you're chasing a promotion but feeling drained by the pressure to succeed. Or perhaps it's in a relationship, where you're so focused on the perfect result that you forget to enjoy the moments along the way. The Stoics would ask you to reframe your perspective. What if you poured your energy into the effort, the process, the journey, and let go of the need to control the outcome? How might that shift change how you feel, how you act, and ultimately how you live? This isn't about giving up on goals or settling for less. It's about recognizing that effort is where we find our strength, our resilience, and our peace. When we focus on what we can control, our actions, our attitude, our commitment, we stop being prisoners of circumstance and start becoming architects of our own character. That's the Stoic way. Gratitude transforms what you have into enough. It's a simple yet profound truth that Stoicism teaches us. When we practice gratitude, we shift our focus from what we lack to what we already possess. This shift doesn't just make us feel better, it gives us a sense of control over our emotions and outlook. Think about it. When you're grateful, you're no longer chasing the next big thing. Instead, you're fully present, appreciating the richness of your life as it is right now. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, often reminded us to cherish the present moment. He said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Gratitude is the antidote to that waste. It's about recognizing the value in the here and now, whether it's the warmth of the sun on your face, the laughter of a loved one, or even the quiet stillness of a morning walk. These moments, when acknowledged, become sources of deep contentment. Consider the story of someone who found joy in the simplest of things: a cup of coffee, a good book, or a kind word from a stranger. These might seem small, but they're powerful reminders that happiness doesn't always come from grand achievements or material wealth. It's often hidden in the ordinary, waiting for us to notice. Gratitude helps us uncover it. So here's a challenge for you. Every day, take a moment to list 3 things you're grateful for. It could be as simple as a meal you enjoyed, a task you accomplished, or a moment of peace in a busy day. This practice doesn't just cultivate gratitude, it trains your mind to see abundance where you might have once seen scarcity. And in doing so, it strengthens your ability to take control of your emotions and find contentment, no matter the circumstances. What would your life look like with more discipline? It's a question worth asking, especially when you consider how much of our daily energy is spent reacting to distractions, impulses, and fleeting desires. In Stoicism, self-discipline isn't just about willpower. It's about aligning your actions with your values, about choosing what truly matters over what simply feels good in the moment. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins with discipline. The ability to say no to the things that pull you away from your purpose, and yes, to the habits that build a meaningful life. Take waking up early, for example. It's not just about setting an alarm, it's about committing to a morning ritual that sets the tone for your day. Maybe it's meditation, journaling, or a quiet walk. The act itself isn't the point, it's the discipline behind it. Each time you choose to rise early and focus on what matters, you're practicing a Stoic principle in action. You're reminding yourself that you have the power to shape your day rather than letting it shape you. So where could you practice greater discipline in your own life? Is it in how you manage your time, what you choose to eat, or how you respond to stress? The beauty of self-discipline is that it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Start small. Identify one area where you can take control and commit to it. Every act of discipline, no matter how minor it seems, is a step toward becoming the master of your own life. And isn't that what Stoicism is all about? Every obstacle is a chance to grow. This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. Instead of seeing challenges as roadblocks, the Stoics teach us to view them as opportunities to strengthen our character, sharpen our skills, and deepen our resilience. It's not about pretending that difficulties don't exist. It's about shifting our perspective to see them as tools for progress. As once wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very thing that seems to block your path can become the path itself, if you choose to use it wisely. Think about it. When faced with a setback, you have two choices. You can let it defeat you, or you can ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this make me better? This mindset doesn't just help you cope, it empowers you to take action. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who famously said of his countless failed attempts to invent the, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Each so-called failure was a stepping stone, a lesson that brought him closer to his goal. Edison's ability to reframe obstacles as opportunities wasn't just optimism. It was a deliberate practice of seeing value in every experience. So what about you? What's an obstacle in your life right now? Maybe it's a project that didn't go as planned, a relationship that's challenging, or a goal that feels out of reach. Take a moment to reflect. How could this obstacle actually serve you? Could it teach you patience, creativity, or perseverance? Could it push you to try a new approach or discover a strength you didn't know you had? By reframing the challenge, you take back control. You turn what could have been a source of frustration into a source of growth. And that's the Stoic way, not just to endure life's difficulties, but to thrive because of them. What is your life's guiding principle? This isn't just a philosophical question. It's the foundation of how you navigate the world. For the Stoics, living with purpose wasn't about grand ambitions or external achievements. It was about aligning your actions with your deepest values, ensuring that every step you take is intentional and meaningful. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, put it simply: first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, clarity of purpose comes before action, not after. It's the compass that helps you stay on course, even when life feels chaotic. Think about it this way. If you were to write a mission statement for your life, what would it say? What values would you prioritize, and how would they shape your decisions? Take the example of someone who feels stuck in their career. They might spend years going through the motions, feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. But when they pause to reflect on what truly matters to them, whether it's creativity, service, or growth, they suddenly have a framework to guide their choices. They can say no to opportunities that don't align with their purpose and yes to the ones that bring them closer to the life they want to live. This clarity doesn't just give them direction, it gives them control. Purpose isn't something you stumble upon, it's something you cultivate. It's about understanding what you stand for and letting that understanding shape your daily actions. So, take a moment to reflect. What does purpose look like for you? What values are non-negotiable in your life? And how can you start aligning your actions with those values today? When you live with purpose, you're not just reacting to life, you're actively shaping it. And that's where true freedom begins. Every moment is an opportunity for presence. Think about it. From the second you wake up to the moment you rest your head at night, life unfolds in a series of tasks, big and small. But how often do we truly show up for them? Mindfulness, as the Stoics understood it, is about bringing your full attention to the present moment, no matter how mundane the activity may seem. It's not just a buzzword, it's a tool for reclaiming control over your thoughts and emotions, especially when life feels chaotic. One of Stoicism's most famous practitioners often reminded himself to focus on the task at hand. He wrote, "When you have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, remember that your defining characteristic, what defines a human being, is to work with others. Even animals know how to sleep, so the point of life is to act, not to rest." This isn't about glorifying busyness. It's about finding purpose and presence in every action, no matter how ordinary. Let's take something as simple as washing dishes. For many, it's a chore to rush through, but what if you approached it differently? Imagine feeling the warmth of the water, noticing the texture of the soap bubbles, and hearing the clink of plates as you stack them. In that moment, you're not just cleaning dishes, you're practicing mindfulness. You're grounding yourself in the present, which in turn reduces stress and creates a sense of calm. It's a small shift, but it can transform how you experience your day. Now consider your own routine. Is there a daily task you often rush through or resent? Maybe it's folding laundry, walking the dog, or even brewing your morning coffee. This week, challenge yourself to approach one of these activities with full attention. Notice the details, engage your senses, and let go of distractions. You might be surprised at how something so simple can become a moment of peace and clarity. Mindfulness in the Stoic sense isn't about escaping reality, it's about fully inhabiting it. By bringing your focus to the present, you cultivate a deeper sense of control over your inner world, even when the outer world feels unpredictable. It's a practice that doesn't require extra time or resources, just your willingness to show up right here, right now. How often do you let your ego dictate your actions? It's a question worth sitting with because the answer might reveal more about your life than you'd like to admit. The Stoics understood that humility isn't just a virtue, it's a tool for growth and deeper connection. It's about recognizing that you don't have all the answers, that you're fallible, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, it's liberating. Seneca once warned, "Pride is the greatest obstacle to wisdom." Think about that for a moment. Pride, our need to be right, to appear strong, to avoid vulnerability, often blinds us to the lessons life is trying to teach us. Humility, on the other hand, opens the door to learning, to understanding others, and to becoming better versions of ourselves. Take the example of someone admitting they've made a mistake at work. Instead of deflecting blame or doubling down, they own up to it. That act of humility doesn't weaken them. It builds trust, respect, and often leads to better solutions. It's a moment of growth, not just for them, but for everyone involved. The Stoics would argue that this kind of humility isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to set aside your ego and say, "I was wrong," or "I need help." So where in your life might humility be calling you? Is it in your relationships, where you might be holding on to the need to always be right? Or in your career, where admitting you don't know something could open the door to learning? Humility isn't about diminishing yourself. It's about recognizing that growth happens when you step out of the shadow of your ego and into the light of self-awareness. The next time you feel that tug of pride, ask yourself, what would humility look like here? The answer might just change the way you see the world and yourself. The journey is the reward. This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. It's not about the destination or the prize at the end. It's about the steps you take, the effort you put in, and the growth you experience along the way. The Stoics believed that true fulfillment comes from committing fully to the process, not from fixating on outcomes that are often beyond your control. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "What matters most is not what happens to you, but how you respond to what happens." In other words, your focus should be on doing your best, giving your full effort and embracing the present moment. The results, they're secondary. Whether you succeed or fail, what truly counts is the integrity of your effort and the lessons you learn in the process. Think about a painter who loses themselves in the act of creating, the brushstrokes, the colors, the flow of ideas. The finished painting might be beautiful, but the real joy comes from the hours spent immersed in the craft. Or consider an athlete training for a marathon. The race itself is just one day, but the months of preparation, the early mornings, the discipline, that's where the transformation happens. These examples remind us that the process itself is where life unfolds, where we grow, and where we find meaning. So, where in your life can you shift your focus from the prize to the process? Maybe it's in your work, where you've been so fixated on promotions or recognition that you've forgotten to enjoy the daily challenges and opportunities to improve. Or perhaps it's in a hobby or passion project, where the pressure to achieve a perfect result has overshadowed the simple pleasure of creating. The Stoics would encourage you to let go of the need for external validation and instead find satisfaction in the effort itself. By embracing this mindset, you free yourself from the anxiety of outcomes and open the door to a more fulfilling, present-focused way of living. The journey, after all, is where the magic happens. What would it feel like to be truly at peace? Not just in moments of quiet or solitude, but in the midst of life's storms, when everything around you feels uncertain, chaotic, or overwhelming. Inner peace, as the Stoics teach us, isn't about escaping the world or avoiding challenges. It's about finding a calm center within yourself, no matter what's happening outside. And the key to this lies not in controlling your circumstances, but in mastering your reactions to them. The philosopher king once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound idea is the cornerstone of Stoic inner peace. It's a reminder that while we can't always choose what happens to us, we can always choose how we respond. Think about that for a moment. How much of your stress, frustration, or anxiety comes from trying to control things that are ultimately beyond your control? And how much of it could be dissolved if you shifted your focus inward, to the one thing you can control, your own mind? Let's take a real-world example. Imagine someone stuck in a traffic jam, late for an important meeting. They could let their frustration boil over, honking the horn, cursing the delay, and spiraling into anger. Or they could pause, take a deep breath, and remind themselves that the traffic is outside their control, but their reaction is. By choosing to stay calm, they preserve their inner peace, even in a frustrating situation. This isn't about being passive or indifferent. It's about recognizing where your power truly lies. So how can you cultivate more of this inner peace in your own life? Start by paying attention to your reactions. When something upsetting happens, ask yourself, is this within my control? If not, how can I let go of the need to fix or resist it? If it is within your control, what's the most constructive way to respond? These small shifts in perspective can create profound changes over time, helping you build a resilience that weathers any storm. Inner peace isn't a destination, it's a practice. And like any skill, it grows stronger with time and effort. The more you train your mind to focus on what you can control, the more you'll find that even in chaos, you can still hold onto that quiet, steady calm within. Your intentions shape your reality. Think about that for a moment. Everything you do, every decision you make, every action you take, it all begins with an intention. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that without clear intentions, we drift through life like a ship without a rudder, tossed by every wave and wind. But when we set a firm intention, we take control of our direction. Seneca once said, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." In other words, purpose is the anchor that keeps us steady, even in the stormiest of seas. Let's break this down. Intentions aren't just vague wishes or fleeting thoughts. They're deliberate, focused commitments to act in alignment with your values and goals. Imagine someone training for a marathon. They don't just wake up one day and decide to run 26 miles. They set a clear intention. I will finish this race. That intention guides their daily decisions, what they eat, how they train, even how they rest. It's the spark that turns effort into achievement. Here's the challenge for you. This week, set one clear intention. It doesn't have to be life-changing or monumental. Maybe it's as simple as I will listen more than I speak in conversations, or I will dedicate 30 minutes to learning something new. The key is to make it specific and actionable. Write it down. Keep it front and center. Let it guide your choices, big and small. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't just shape your actions, it shapes your mindset. When you act with intention, you cultivate a sense of agency and purpose. You're no longer reacting to life, you're creating it. And that, as the Stoics would remind us, is the ultimate form of control. What could you let go of to live more freely? It's a question that cuts right to the heart of the Stoic principle of embracing simplicity. In a world overflowing with distractions, endless choices, and constant noise, the idea of simplifying might feel like a breath of fresh air, or even a radical act of defiance. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that by stripping away the unnecessary, we not only reduce distractions but also reclaim control over our lives. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, true freedom doesn't come from accumulating more. It comes from needing less. Think about your workspace for a moment. How often do you find yourself surrounded by clutter, papers, or items you don't even use? Each of those things demands a tiny piece of your attention, pulling you away from what truly matters. Now imagine clearing it all away, leaving only what serves a purpose. Suddenly, your mind feels lighter, your focus sharper, and your ability to tackle tasks more effortless. That's the power of simplicity in action. It's not just about physical spaces, though. Simplicity can extend to your schedule, your relationships, even your digital life. Every time you remove something that doesn't add value, you create room for what does. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to identify one area of your life that feels overly complicated or cluttered. Maybe it's a drawer full of things you never use, a calendar packed with commitments you don't truly care about, or even a mental habit of overthinking. What could you let go of to make space for clarity and control? Simplicity isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. By embracing it, you're not losing anything of value. You're gaining the freedom to focus on what truly matters, and that's a gift only you can give yourself. Everyone is fighting a battle you can't see. This simple truth lies at the heart of Stoic compassion, a practice that encourages us to see beyond surface-level actions and into the struggles of others. The Stoics believed that understanding the inner battles people face, whether fear, pain, or confusion, could transform how we interact with them. One of history's most renowned Stoic thinkers often reminded himself to approach others with patience and empathy. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." This perspective isn't about excusing harmful behavior, but about recognizing the humanity behind it. Empathy, when practiced consistently, has the power to dissolve conflict and build bridges where walls once stood. Think about a time when someone upset you, maybe snapped at you during a stressful project, or a friend canceled plans at the last minute. It's easy to react with frustration or judgment. But what if, instead, you paused and considered what might be going on in their life? Perhaps you're juggling personal struggles, or your friend is overwhelmed by responsibilities they haven't shared. When we choose compassion, we create space for understanding rather than resentment. Here's an example. Imagine two neighbors arguing over a noisy dog. One feels constantly disturbed, while the other feels unfairly criticized. If both approach the situation with anger, the conflict escalates. But if one decides to extend compassion, perhaps by asking, "Is everything okay? I've noticed your dog has been barking more lately," it opens the door to dialogue. Maybe the neighbor reveals they've been working long hours and haven't been able to care for their pet as they'd like. Suddenly, the problem becomes a shared challenge to solve, not a battle to win. So how can you apply this in your own life? Think about a relationship that feels strained, maybe with a family member, a colleague, or even someone you encounter casually, like a barista who seems perpetually grumpy. Instead of reacting to their behavior, try to approach them with curiosity and kindness. Ask yourself, what might they be carrying that I don't see? This small shift in perspective can transform not only your interactions, but also your own sense of peace. After all, compassion isn't just a gift to others. It's a practice that enriches your own life, reminding you that we're all navigating this world with our own unseen burdens. Who are you when no one is watching? It's a question that cuts to the core of what it means to live with integrity, not just when others are looking, but in those quiet moments when it's just you and your conscience. The Stoics believed that your character, the essence of who you are, matters far more than your reputation, the way others perceive you. Reputation is fleeting, shaped by the opinions and judgments of people who may not even know you fully. But character, that's something no one can take away from you. It's built through the choices you make when no one is there to applaud or criticize. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it plainly. What's the point of having a good reputation if you're not a good person? He urged his students to focus on aligning their actions with their values, not the fleeting approval of others. This doesn't mean ignoring how you're seen in the world entirely. After all, we live in a society where reputation can have real consequences. But it does mean prioritizing who you are over how you're perceived. If your reputation suffers because you stood by your principles, so be it. As Epictetus would say, it's better to be honest and true to yourself than to chase the hollow praise of others. Think about someone who chooses honesty over popularity. Picture a colleague who refuses to go along with office gossip, even when it means being left out of the group. Or imagine a leader who makes the tough but ethical decision, knowing it might cost them public favor. These aren't easy choices, but they reveal something profound about a person's character. They show a commitment to doing what's right, even when it's inconvenient or unpopular. That's the kind of integrity the Stoics admired, a steadfast devotion to virtue, regardless of the consequences. Now, take a moment to reflect on your own life. When have you chosen to act with integrity, even when no one was watching? And when have you maybe compromised your values to fit in or avoid conflict? It's not about judging yourself harshly. It's about recognizing where you can grow. Living with character over reputation means embracing the discomfort of standing alone sometimes. It means valuing your inner compass more than the crowd's applause. The next time you're faced with a decision, ask yourself, does this align with who I want to be? Not who others expect me to be, but the person I know I'm capable of becoming. Because in the end, your character is your legacy, not the fleeting opinions of others, but the enduring truth of who you are. Between stimulus and response, there is a space for choice. This small but profound gap is where Stoicism teaches us to reclaim control over our lives. Imagine a moment when someone cuts you off in traffic or says something hurtful in a heated conversation. The immediate reaction might be anger, frustration, or even the urge to lash out. But Stoicism invites us to pause, just for a moment, before we let those emotions dictate our actions. That pause, that tiny space, is where reason steps in. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, often spoke about the importance of deliberation. He believed that acting impulsively was a betrayal of our rational nature. Instead, he urged us to take a breath, step back, and ask ourselves, what is the most virtuous way to respond? This deliberate pause doesn't just prevent regret, it transforms how we engage with the world. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about choosing how to act in alignment with our values. Think about a time when someone's harsh words made your blood boil. Instead of firing back, what if you took a deep breath? That simple act of pausing can diffuse the tension, allowing you to respond with clarity rather than react with anger. It's not easy. Our instincts often push us toward quick emotional reactions, but that's where the practice comes in. Every time we pause, we strengthen our ability to act with intention rather than impulse. So the next time you find yourself in a stressful situation, try this. When the heat rises, take a moment to breathe. Let that space between stimulus and response grow a little wider. Ask yourself what a wise, compassionate, and virtuous response would look like. This small act of pausing is more than just a Stoic exercise. It's a powerful tool for living with greater purpose and peace. And like any skill, it gets easier with practice. Start small and watch how that pause begins to change not just your actions, but your entire approach to life. What are you resisting that you can't control? This question cuts to the heart of Stoic philosophy, challenging us to confront the things we cling to, even when they're beyond our influence. The truth is, much of what we struggle with, whether it's the past, other people's actions, or unexpected events, is simply outside our power to change. And yet, we often waste precious energy trying to fight against these realities, only to find ourselves frustrated and exhausted. This is where the Stoic principle of acceptance comes in. It's not about giving up or being passive. It's about recognizing what's within your control and letting go of what is. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. These words remind us that acceptance isn't defeat, it's wisdom. When we stop resisting what we can't change, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Think about it. How much of your stress or unhappiness comes from trying to control the uncontrollable? Consider the story of someone who loses a job unexpectedly. At first, they might feel anger, fear, or even shame. But over time, they realize that dwelling on what's already happened only prolongs their pain. Instead, they choose to focus on what they can do, updating their skills, networking, or exploring new opportunities. This shift in mindset doesn't erase the difficulty of the situation, but it does bring a sense of peace and clarity. By accepting what they can't change, they open themselves to new possibilities and reduce their emotional burden. So what about you? What's one thing in your life that you're struggling to accept? Maybe it's a past mistake, a relationship that didn't work out, or an unexpected change in your plans. Take a moment to reflect on this. Acknowledge that while you can't change the situation itself, you can change how you respond to it. Acceptance isn't easy, but it's a powerful tool for finding peace in the face of life's uncertainties. When you stop fighting against the tides you can't control, you create space for calm, clarity, and even growth. Every challenge is a test of your character. This Stoic idea invites us to see life not as a series of random events, but as a deliberate proving ground for our virtues. When difficulties arise, they aren't just obstacles. They're opportunities to demonstrate resilience, patience, and wisdom. Think of it like this. Life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you, shaping you into the person you're meant to become. The philosopher King often reflected on this concept. He believed that trials were not punishments but lessons designed to reveal and refine our inner strength. In his writings, he urged himself and others to face adversity with grace, saying, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the challenges we encounter are the very tools we need to grow. Consider the story of someone who faced a major setback, perhaps losing a job or enduring a personal loss. At first, it might feel like the world is against them, but over time, they begin to see the situation differently. They start to ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I grow stronger?" Instead of being crushed by the weight of their circumstances, they use it to build resilience, develop patience, and cultivate gratitude for the lessons learned. This shift in perspective doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it into something meaningful. So how do you approach life's tests? Do you see them as unfair burdens, or do you view them as chances to prove your mettle? The Stoics remind us that our response to difficulty is what defines us. It's not about avoiding hardship, but about meeting it with courage and clarity. When you face a challenge, ask yourself, what kind of person will I choose to be in this moment? The answer to that question is where true growth begins. How does this moment fit into the story of your life? It's a question that might seem simple at first, but when you really sit with it, it can shift everything. The Stoics believed that perspective is one of the most powerful tools we have for navigating life's challenges. When we zoom out and see the bigger picture, the small struggles that consume us start to lose their grip. Think about it. How often do we get caught up in the details of a single day, a single problem, or even a single conversation? It's easy to let these moments define us, to feel like they're all that matter. But the Stoics remind us that life is much larger than any one moment. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Most of the things we worry about never come to pass, and even if they do, they rarely matter as much as we think they will in the grand scheme of things. Take, for example, someone who struggles with anxiety. Every setback feels like a catastrophe, every mistake like a permanent mark. But what happens when they step back and ask, how will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Suddenly, the weight of the moment begins to lighten. The problem doesn't disappear, but it becomes manageable. This is the power of perspective. It doesn't erase our challenges, but it gives us the clarity to see them for what they truly are. So how can you apply this in your own life? Start by practicing the art of zooming out. When you're facing a difficult situation, pause and ask yourself, how does this fit into the bigger story of my life? Remind yourself that this moment, no matter how intense it feels, is just one chapter in a much longer book. By doing this, you're not dismissing your struggles. You're simply giving them the right amount of attention. The Stoics knew that life is full of ups and downs, but they also knew that we can choose how we respond to them. When we focus on the bigger picture, we regain a sense of control. We realize that most of what we fear or stress over is temporary, and that knowledge alone can bring a sense of peace. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, try stepping back. See your challenges in the context of your life story and let that perspective guide you forward. Patience is the antidote to frustration. How often do we find ourselves agitated, restless, or even angry because things aren't happening as fast as we'd like? Whether it's waiting for a promotion, mastering a new skill, or seeing progress in our personal goals, impatience can feel like a constant companion. But here's the truth. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about how we wait. It's the ability to endure delays, setbacks, and uncertainties with calm and clarity. And in the Stoic view, patience is a kind of superpower, one that gives us control over our emotions and builds unshakable resilience. Take Epictetus, for example. He taught that we should approach life's delays not as obstacles, but as opportunities to practice self-mastery. He famously said, "If you are going to be impatient with yourself, not with the world." What he meant was that our frustration often stems from our own expectations, not the external events themselves. When we learn to accept that some things are beyond our control and focus instead on how we respond to them, we reclaim our power. Patience, in this sense, becomes a form of strength, a way to rise above the chaos and stay grounded in our purpose. Consider the story of someone pursuing a long-term goal, like starting a business or writing a book. Imagine the countless hours spent planning, revising, and pushing forward, even when progress feels slow. There are moments of doubt, setbacks, and days when it seems easier to give up. But it's patience, the willingness to keep going, to trust the process, that ultimately leads to success. This kind of persistence isn't just about endurance, it's about faith in the value of the journey itself. And when the goal is finally achieved, the reward isn't just the outcome, it's the person you've become along the way. So where in your life can you practice more patience? Is it in your career, your relationships, or perhaps a personal project? Take a moment to reflect on one area where frustration tends to creep in. Instead of resisting the delay or the difficulty, what if you embraced it as a chance to grow? Every moment of waiting, every challenge, is an invitation to strengthen your resolve and deepen your understanding of what truly matters. Patience doesn't mean passivity. It means choosing to act with intention, even when the results aren't immediate. And in that choice, you'll find a quiet but powerful sense of control over your life. How are you spending your most precious resource? Time, more than money, status, or possessions, is the one thing you can never get back once it's gone. The Stoics understood this deeply, placing immense value on how we choose to spend our days. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly: "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." These words cut to the core of what it means to live intentionally. Life may feel long in the moment, but when we look back, we often realize how much of it slipped through our fingers. Consider this: every decision you make is a trade-off. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to countless others. Imagine someone who spends years climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize they've missed out on meaningful relationships or personal growth. Or think about the person who spends hours scrolling through social media, only to wonder where the day went. These aren't judgments, they're reminders. Time is the great equalizer. No matter who you are or what you do, you have the same 24 hours in a day. The question is, how will you use them? The Stoics urge us to treat time as our most valuable currency. It's not about filling every moment with productivity or hustle. It's about aligning your actions with what truly matters to you. Ask yourself, does this activity bring me closer to the person I want to become? Does it contribute to my growth, my relationships, or my sense of purpose? If not, it might be worth reconsidering. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are you spending your time on things that align with your values? Or are you letting distractions and obligations pull you away from what's truly important? The beauty of this Stoic principle is its simplicity. It doesn't demand perfection, it simply asks for awareness. By valuing your time, you take back control of your life, one intentional choice at a time. Happiness is found in the small moments. The Stoics believed that true contentment doesn't come from chasing grand achievements or material possessions, but from learning to see the beauty in the ordinary. The philosopher king once wrote about finding peace in the simplicity of life, reminding us that even the most mundane moments can hold profound meaning if we choose to see them that way. Think about the quiet satisfaction of a morning coffee, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, or the sound of rain tapping against a window. These are not just fleeting details. They are opportunities to cultivate gratitude and joy. Take, for example, someone who finds joy in their daily walk to work. Instead of rushing through it, they notice the way the trees sway in the breeze, the rhythm of their footsteps, or the faint hum of the city waking up. By shifting their focus to these small, often overlooked details, they transform what could feel like a routine chore into a moment of connection and presence. This is Stoicism in action, finding richness in the everyday. So here's a challenge for you. Today, take a moment to pause and appreciate one ordinary part of your day. It could be the taste of your lunch, the laughter of or even the feeling of your breath as you sit quietly. When we train ourselves to find joy in these small, simple moments, we build a foundation of contentment that no external circumstance can easily shake. This is the Stoic art of finding beauty in the ordinary, a practice that turns the mundane into the extraordinary. What does it truly mean to live with integrity? Are your actions aligned with your values, or do you sometimes find yourself compromising in ways that leave you feeling disconnected from who you truly are? Integrity is one of the cornerstones of Stoic philosophy, and it's not just about doing the right thing when others are watching. It's about aligning your behavior with your deepest principles, even when no one is around to see it. This is where trust and self-respect are built, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet, consistent choices we make every single day. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential thinkers, emphasized the importance of consistency in our actions. He believed that true freedom comes from living in harmony with our values, no matter the circumstances. When we act with integrity, we're not just honoring others, we're honoring ourselves. It's about being the same person in private as you are in public, holding yourself to the same standards regardless of who's around. This kind of authenticity is powerful. It builds trust with others. Yes, but even more importantly, it strengthens your relationship with yourself. Think about someone who stands up for their beliefs, even when it's difficult. Maybe it's a colleague who refuses to cut corners on a project, even when pressured to meet a tight deadline. Or perhaps it's a friend who speaks out against injustice, even when it's unpopular. These are moments of integrity in action, where someone chooses to stay true to their values despite external pressures. It's not easy, but it's deeply rewarding. Now, take a moment to reflect. Where in your life might you be compromising your integrity? Are there areas where your actions don't quite match your beliefs? It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Small, consistent steps toward living more authentically can have a profound impact over time. When you align your actions with your values, you'll find a deeper sense of peace and confidence, knowing that you're living in a way that truly reflects who you are. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It's a powerful image, isn't it? Yet, so many of us cling to grudges, replaying past hurts in our minds as if the act of remembering will somehow balance the scales. The Stoics, however, saw this as a trap, a way of giving power to the very things that hurt us. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly: resentment is a waste of time. It doesn't change the past, and it doesn't heal the present. All it does is keep us tethered to pain, preventing us from moving forward. Think about it. When we hold a grudge, who is really suffering? The person who wronged us might not even be aware of our anger. Meanwhile, we carry the weight of bitterness, letting it shape our days and color our thoughts. Forgiveness, on the other hand, isn't about excusing the wrong or forgetting what happened. It's about freeing ourselves from the emotional chains that bind us. It's a choice to stop letting someone else's actions dictate our inner peace. Take the story of a man who spent years resenting a former friend for betraying him. Every time he thought about it, he felt a surge of anger, as if the betrayal had just happened. But one day, he decided to let it go. Not because the betrayal didn't matter, but because he realized his anger was only hurting him. The moment he chose forgiveness, he felt a weight lift, a clarity and calm he hadn't experienced in years. That's the power of releasing a grudge. It doesn't erase the past, but it gives us back the present. So what about you? Is there a grudge you've been holding on to? Maybe it's something small, a slight you can't seem to forget. Or perhaps it's something bigger, a wound that still feels raw. Whatever it is, consider this. What would it feel like to let it go? Not for the other person's sake, but for your own. The Stoics remind us that our greatest power lies in how we respond to life's challenges. And sometimes, the bravest response is simply to release what no longer serves us. What are you missing when you fixate only on the end goal? It's easy to get so wrapped up in the finish line that we forget to appreciate the steps it takes to get there. The Stoics remind us that true growth and fulfillment come from the journey, not the destination. Put it beautifully when he said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the challenges, the effort, the small daily victories, these are where the magic happens. They're not obstacles to your success. They are your success. Think about learning a new skill, like playing an instrument. If you're only focused on the moment you can play a perfect song, you'll miss the joy of mastering each chord, the satisfaction of progress, and even the lessons in your mistakes. The process itself is where you grow, where you learn resilience, patience, and discipline. Those are the qualities that stay with you long after the final note is played. So, where in your life are you rushing toward the destination? Are you so focused on the promotion at work that you overlook the skills you're building along the way? Are you so eager for the end of a project that you miss the creativity and collaboration happening right now? Take a moment to reflect. How can you shift your attention to the journey, to the present moment, and find value in what's right in front of you? Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. This might sound counterintuitive, especially in a world that often treats failure as something to avoid at all costs. But in Stoicism, failure isn't a dead end. It's a stepping stone. It's feedback, a teacher in disguise. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, the value of any experience, whether it's a triumph or a setback, lies in what you choose to take from it. Here's the thing: mistakes are inevitable. No one gets through life without stumbling. But the Stoics remind us that every misstep is an opportunity to grow. Think of it like this. When a scientist conducts an experiment and it fails, they don't throw their hands up and quit. They analyze the results, adjust their approach, and try again. That failure becomes the foundation for their next breakthrough. The same principle applies to life. Take Thomas Edison, for example. He famously failed thousands of times while trying to invent but instead of seeing those attempts as failures, he called them discoveries. "I have not failed," he said. "I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the Stoic mindset in action. It's not about denying the sting of failure, it's about reframing it. What can you learn from this? How can you use it to move forward? So here's a challenge for you. Think about a recent failure in your own life. Maybe it's a project that didn't go as planned, a goal you fell short of, or a decision you regret. Now, instead of dwelling on what went wrong, ask yourself, what feedback does this experience offer? What lessons can I take from it? By shifting your perspective, you transform failure from a source of frustration into a tool for growth. This isn't about ignoring the emotions that come with failure. It's about channeling them into something productive. The Stoics believed that even the most difficult experiences could be turned to our advantage if we approach them with the right mindset. So, the next time you face a setback, remember, it's not the end of the road. It's a chance to learn, adapt, and come back stronger. And that's how failure becomes part of the path to success. Who supports you on your journey? It's a question worth asking because none of us are meant to walk through life alone. The Stoics, despite their emphasis on self-reliance, also understood the profound strength that comes from community. One of Stoicism's most famous practitioners often reflected on the interconnectedness of humanity. He wrote, What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. In other words, our individual well-being is deeply tied to the well-being of those around us. We thrive not in isolation, but in connection. Think about it. When life feels overwhelming, who do you turn to? A friend, a family member, a mentor. These relationships aren't just nice to have, they're essential. They remind us that we're not alone in our struggles, and they give us the courage to keep moving forward. Take, for example, the story of a young entrepreneur who faced repeated failures in her business. It wasn't until she leaned on her network of peers and mentors that she found the resilience to pivot and eventually succeed. Their encouragement didn't just help her survive, it helped her grow. This is the Stoic idea of shared humanity in action. We all face challenges, but when we come together, we amplify our ability to endure and overcome. So take a moment to reflect. Who are the people in your life who lift you up? Who inspires you to be better, stronger, more resilient? And just as importantly, how can you be that source of strength for someone else? Because in the end, the bonds we build with others aren't just a safety net, they're the foundation of our collective strength. As we come to the end of this journey through Stoic wisdom, it's worth pausing to reflect on what we've explored together. The essence of Stoicism isn't just about enduring life's challenges, it's about thriving through them by focusing on what truly matters. At its core, Stoicism teaches us that while we can't control every circumstance, we can always control how we respond. This shift in perspective is where true power lies. By letting go of what's outside our influence and directing our energy toward what we can shape, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, we reclaim control over our lives. One of the most profound takeaways is the idea that challenges aren't obstacles but opportunities. Every difficulty, every setback is a chance to practice resilience, to grow stronger, and to cultivate inner peace. Stoicism doesn't promise a life free from hardship, but it does offer a path to face hardship with courage and clarity. And in doing so, we discover that peace isn't something we find in the world around us. It's something we build within ourselves. To close, let's turn to the words of Seneca, who once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simple yet profound truth captures the heart of Stoic philosophy. It's a reminder that self-mastery is the ultimate form of freedom. When we take responsibility for our inner world, we unlock the ability to navigate life's uncertainties with grace and purpose. Now it's your turn. Take these insights and apply them in your daily life. Start small, reflect on what's within your control today, and let go of what is. Notice how challenges can become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. And as you grow in this practice, take a moment to celebrate your progress. Stoicism isn't about perfection, it's about progress, one step at a time. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below sharing how Stoicism has impacted your life or what principles you're excited to explore further. And if you found value in this conversation, consider subscribing for more insights and practical wisdom to help you live a more intentional, empowered life. Together, let's continue this journey towards self-mastery and inner peace. Thank you for watching, and remember, the power to shape your life is always